In this video, I'm going to provide a very quick review of all the steps required in order to compile a Linux dedicated server for Unreal Engine 4. And I will actually be using Unreal Engine 5, but the steps for Unreal Engine 4 should be the same. The first thing we need to make very clear is you actually compile a Linux dedicated server on Windows through what is called a cross-compiling process. And I'm going to show you how it's done. But first, we need to grab the Unreal Engine source code from the Epic Games GitHub repository, and after it's done, we can go to the folder, and you need to run two commands. The first is the setup bat, and the second is generate project files, which you actually don't need to do that because I just like to do it, but you don't need to compile anything at this moment because you are going to download one of those two. If you are using 4.27, you can download the latest. But if you are using Unreal Engine 5 Early Access, it only supports this version 10. After it's downloaded, it's an exe file. We install it, and in my case, I install it to this folder. And after installation, you can go to your environment variables and make sure you have a Linux multi-architecture root, and that points to the installation folder of the toolchain. And finally, you can go back to your source code folder and rerun generate project files.bat. And the purpose here is after you rerun it, you will actually get new compilation configurations for Linux, new build targets for Linux. And after that, what you can do is you can create a blueprint or C++ project and here for demonstration purpose I'm using the third-person template, and create a new project and add a new class file to it to convert it to a C++ project, because we will need to do something with the C++ source code. And after everything is done, you will have the source folder, and inside the source folder by default you will only have your game editor.target.cs. You want to make a copy of it and rename it to the server target.cs, and inside the file you change everything that was editor to a server. And after that, you go back and regenerate the Visual Studio project files for the game. And finally, you can open it in your favorite IDE. In this case, I'm using Rider. And here's something you need to do that differs depending on whether you are using Unreal Engine 4 or Unreal Engine 5. If you are using Unreal Engine 4, you are good to go. Compile something for your Linux server. But if you're using Unreal Engine 5, there's an issue with the early access at this moment. And I'm going to post this link. But basically, you need to go to platforminfo.cpp and add those 3 lines here so that the build tool knows how to generate a server build. Because if you don't do that, and you try to build for your server, it will actually build a client. So that's everything you need to do in order to fix this. After everything is done, you can build for your development editor, and you can build for your server, development server for Linux. And in this case, I'm also building for Windows as a test. So it will take forever, but after maybe a few hours, you will be able to go inside your editor and finally package your game. So you can experiment with all those combinations. In this case, I'm generating a development build for Windows Server and client, and you click the package project, select the folder, and also I am generating a development build for Linux server. After that is done, which is going to be another decade, you will have everything here. Now there's something interesting I need to tell you about. So if you just run your game client, oh by the way, so this is a client, this is the server for Windows, this is the server for Linux, and I'm also building a shipping version of the client. If you just run your regular client, it just the default map. But there's something you can do that allows you to test your game itself. And here it's a specific command. I mean, command line argument. I want you to know that is, if you do a listen and you run it, that is actually a listen server here, and you can run the same program and let it connect, and you can test your game itself. Yeah, that's something I just want you to know. But for our purpose, we have this server, and the server, in order to use the server, you need to add, if you are just testing it on Windows, you can use a this thing, and that will run the server with a log. If you don't have this argument, it will not have this window, and it will run in the background, and it's a little bit confusing. And after that, for your game, you can do the same thing here, and it's 127.0.0.1, and optionally a port. I did something with my client, so it's not going to work here, but yeah, it should work in other cases. So after that is done, what you need to do is to finally, actually before you even put that to your actual Linux server, I recommend doing a test on your local PC if you have a Docker and Windows subsystem for Linux. And in this case, I created a container that has port forwarding of 7777, and the protocol, you must specify the protocol to be UDP. I will have a command for you, which is the Docker. Oops, where's my Docker? Yeah. So you can do, what you can do here is you actually do this is everything you need to do. Docker ROM name MyUE4 server, and you do a Python 3, and you don't need any of that, and then do a P, and you do this thing. Yeah, you use this to spawn a container, and you can put everything there. But for our purpose, I'm just going to create a new droplet on DigitalOcean, and you can use the Debian. And the very basic plan will work with only 1 GB of memory, single CPU, and 25 GB of disk. And I put it in Toronto and select the password. And I have already done it. And after that, you can use whatever means you like and put it to your remote server. In this case, I put it somewhere here. Now, if you are on a fresh install of Debian, you need to run a few additional commands to set everything up. The first is you need to add a user. The username doesn't matter, but you cannot run the server with the root access. So you need to add a user, and in this case, I'm creating the home folder for the user. And then you put your compressed Linux server executable, which is this folder, and put it there, and unzip it, and finally you switch to that user, and you can use this share script to run your server. I'm going to demonstrate that later. That's how you do it. How to do it on the server. This part is actually trivial, because the most difficult part is to actually compile the game, because during the packaging process you can encounter a lot of issues, which I'm not showing here. And after that is done, you can do, so here I'm going to do a tmux, that's a terminal manager, and I'm going to attach to my instance, which is, I don't remember the command, tmux at server. Okay, cool. Tmux. Yeah, so I'm already running it here, and basically just run the share script with the ordinary user access. And here's the thing: if you are packaging a shipping build, you will not be able to do the trick like, passing a command line argument, because the shipping build doesn't have it. That's why I actually did something with the game. I let the game read this configuration file, and that file contains the IP address of the server wherever that is, and when you double click that, it will automatically connect to the server, and you can connect more instances to it. Yeah, okay. So that's it basically for the whole process of publishing your own dedicated server for Linux. Now, there's a few things I would like to mention. During my, my experience with this, I encountered some issues with the build tool. It says something like your project didn't reference .NET SDK 4.6.2, something like that. Or in other cases, it will say the build tool cannot find the particular .NET assembly. I didn't find exactly why that is the case, but in the end, my solution is to make sure I have the latest version of the source code. So I actually deleted everything here, and I rechecked it out and rebuild everything, and that makes sure everything works. Okay. And one other thing I want to mention is for the very simple third-person template, because we have both the shipping and development build for Linux and for Windows, the final size of the whole folder is going to be a gigantic 60 gigabytes, okay, with almost no content in it. But the final builds, if you are using a development build, it's going to be about 400 megabytes, and for Linux server, it's smaller, and this is the development server. And for the shipping build of the client, it's still 300 megabytes, and that's basically everything involved in this whole process, and I wish you best luck. I'm going to link everything that might be helpful. Oops. And also I have uploaded the third-person dedicated server test package, which contains a Windows server, Windows client, and a Linux server. With the setup that I am showing here, that if you publish it to your own server, you just need to change the configuration file and make the IP address to the address of your server. And that's everything for it. Thank you.